All right, we are live and I am excited. This is going to be fun. I'm really excited about this being my last podcast episode that I'm recording for 2020, and I get to record it with my buddy Isha Cogborn. And so this is going to be fun and exciting. So whenever people start joining us, I would encourage you to go ahead and share this. I'm actually going to take a second. Aisha, you want to take a second?
Me too. Look, I was trying to hide and do it like under here and like try to look up here and sneak down here. So
Yes.
I'm glad that I don't have to sneak anymore. Yep, my
Yes.
phone's right here. I was trying to do it.
I'm just going to take a few seconds to join us. Conduct your year review. Okay. All right. Let me see. I think I'm sharing it. Well, this always takes me forever to do.
You know something that I said I was
gonna. How did you do that so fast?
I said I was going to start writing my captions in my notes section so I could easily copy them over quickly when I want to share something. I didn't do that today, but that was something that I always think about after the fact. I'm like, I'm going to start doing that.
Okay. I was like, yeah, it always takes me forever. I'm over here struggling. Okay. Anyway, okay. Back to now we can go back into our recording mode. Okay. So I am so excited for today's episode. When we are going to be recording this, we're recording it live. So for some of you, you're going to hear this on the podcast as a recording. So if you want to go and watch the video, you can go over to facebook.com/strongherme and be able to watch the video along with this, or you can just listen along with us in your podcast app. And I have a very special guest with me today. If you have listened to our podcast for any length of time, you know that Isha and I are really good friends. And she joins me each year as I conduct a year in review. She is one of the most amazing women I know, and also one of the most amazing advisors, coach, any type of person that you can think of who is full of wisdom that can help you move forward in whatever God has called you to do. She would fit in that category. And so she's my guest for today. You're listening to episode 82 of Work Your Plan with Kendra, and I am Kendra Tillman, the founder of Strong Her Me and the host of the Work Your Plan with Kendra podcast. As a women's empowerment coach, I help Christian women reclaim their authentic voice while establishing a business or a ministry that reflects their calling and core values. And this podcast centers around practical strategies to work your plan, including how to overcome fears and other mental barriers that keep you from taking the risks necessary to see yourself the way that God sees you. So we interview women like Isha who are working their plan, and we learn from them how we can be taking small intentional steps, the same type of steps that they take to reach their goals. And so I mentioned her name a couple of times. Let me just tell you really quick that Isha is a personal brand strategist and the founder of Startup Life Support and Epiphany Institute. And Isha, I would love for you to just kind of share with them a little bit more about who you are, and then we'll dive into our conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kendra, for inviting me again. Like this is like one of the holiday traditions. Some people look forward to putting up the tree and eating food and wrapping presents. I look forward to the year in review with Kendra Tillman. So happy that we're able to do that again this year. So a little bit about me. I'm a corporate dropout. I spent 13 years working for two of the world's largest corporations, helping them to build their brands and to connect with their audiences effectively. And I realized that wasn't who I wanted to be when I grew up. Didn't know I was an entrepreneur, should have known that, because I'm one of those people that doesn't like to play by everybody else's rules. I want to create my own. So
yes,
I should have known that, but I didn't. And but really it came down to me thinking about what I wanted my life to look like, the type of work that I wanted to do, the type of people that I wanted to serve, the freedom and the flexibility that I wanted to have. And I realized in order to do that, the best path for me was to create my own thing. And so that's what I did. And so the two primary ways that I serve people is one, helping experts and coaches and consultants to develop the confidence and the competence to share their message on bigger platforms without having to burn yourself out. Because you don't have to be on every platform under the sun, live streaming 22 hours a day, killing yourself to try to get somebody to pay attention to you. So we find ways to do it that makes sense and allows you to truly be yourself and to connect with the people that you're uniquely gifted to serve. And the other thing that I do is I started what was really a passion project 4 years ago called Startup Life Support. And that really developed out of a model that, Kendra, you and I have with several other girlfriends, where we've been able to support each other for years, not only around our businesses, but in our personal lives. And so Startup Life Support was really to give people an outlet so that, I mean, because entrepreneurship is lonely. It is very overwhelming. It's scary. And if you don't have people in your circle that you're connecting with on a regular basis, it can be, you may even succeed professionally, but fail miserably in your personal life. So, you know, we help people to really find that balance of what does a good life look like for you as an entrepreneur, and how are we supporting each other, holding each other accountable, helping each other to shorten that learning curve to get there.
Amen. That's so good. So good. You are so right talking about the fact that it can be lonely. I feel like social media has created this view and perspective of entrepreneurship that is unrealistic, that is very romanticized, right? So people don't know about the times where you are crying.
Yes.
Right, where you are doubting yourself, you are doubting anything that you feel like God told you to do, you're doubting everything. And that is one of the things that I feel that I have been so grateful for, is that I do have a community of women that I am connected to, who we are honest and truthful about what it is that we're going through. And like you said, but what you realize is that not a lot of people have that. Like sometimes you take for granted something that's normal for you, right? And so you just assume that, well, everybody has this. Well, no, not everybody does. And so that is the gap that Startup Life Support has filled, is being able to give people, like, if you don't have a community of friends who are also entrepreneurs, maybe your friends work a 9 to 5, and so they really don't understand the ups and downs. And even if you're doing it as a side hustle, they might not understand, and so having just the support from someone. And one of the things that I did want you to say a little bit more about is what is the value of a personal brand? Like, could you talk about that? I feel like people have heard that word before, but maybe they don't really know what that actually means.
Well, I think one of the challenges when people think about their personal brand or branding, period, it could even be just branding for your business. You're thinking colors, you're thinking logos, you're thinking of what it looks like. But really at the essence of your brand is, who are you? And one of the things that I really work with my clients to do is to figure out, how do we tap into who you are, the unique experiences and the perspective that you've had, to be able to shape the way that you show up in the marketplace based on that. Because there are too many people that are looking at the person next to them that does what they do. And so they feel their stuff has to sound like that, look like that, they've got to show up like that. And that's not who they are. And if it's not authentically who you are, people are going to feel that disconnect, or you're going to have a hard time trying to be this person that you think you should be. So your personal brand at its essence is really making sure that who you are in the way you want to show up in the world, that's very intentional, that it's consistent, and that that messaging is there that lets people not leave that to chance. Too often we think, well, people will figure it out, they're paying attention. No, they're not.
Right.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Because and even if you're working in a corporate setting, and we will think, oh, I'll just let my results speak for me. No, people aren't listening. And so we have to be very intentional about, who are we are and how do we differentiate ourselves in the way that we show up in the world? Because when you're just one of many, it's very difficult to do that. And there can be thousands of other people who do what you do, and you can all be successful because you're going to show up a little bit differently. Who you're called to serve may be a little different. The way you serve them may be a little different. The way you talk, your personality, all those things that perhaps you've been thinking you need to hide, you need to temper these things down.
Yes.
People aren't going to accept you if you split a verb, or if you don't wear makeup every day, or whatever it is that you think is out of alignment with what you think you should be. Well, those may be the very things that will endear people to you if you embrace it.
Yes.
If you and say, look, I'm not putting on makeup every day. This is who I am. This is what you get.
Yes.
And I made that decision. I'm not frou-frou-y. I'm not, And so then people aren't thinking, oh, you don't care. And making a judgment based on that. No, you've made this declaration that this is who I am. And there will be people that are like, yes, thank you. That's how I feel too. That's who I am too. And so in the sea of people that they could connect with or work with, they're going to choose you because there's something about you that resonates with them. And it's not an act. It's not positioning. It is who you are. But because we are who we are, oftentimes we don't know what those unique things are. We don't know how to really package our essence. And so I work with people to help them to figure that out. And when you do that, it's a huge confidence builder because you realize I don't have to be that. It's okay if I don't have 22 letters behind my name because I know I'm good at what I do. I'm going to stay in my lane. This is who I serve, and they love and they appreciate me for it. And so all of that is a part of really building your personal brand.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm so glad that you just really took the time to break that down, because I feel like you explaining that is a huge theme of what this year has been about. I know in my life, and I'm sure in the lives of the people that are going to watch and listen to this, is that being, authenticity, like that's a word that we throw around a lot. There's a lot of phrases and things that we hear and we grab and we use, but I don't think that we fully understand what that means. And I feel like for me, that is what 2020 has been about, uncovering what does authenticity actually mean in practice, not just in theory, not just a word that sounds cool, but what does it actually mean and what does it look like? I feel that has been part of the challenge of this year, of us actually seeing people in ways that they have always been, but we did not know it until 2020. And so, before I get ahead of myself, because I know
I just landed like a little differently for me. I'm like, whoa, yeah, that's very true.
You said it did differently.
Yeah. It's like I heard you, but then when that settled, I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So before we dive in, so I want to give you, everybody that's listening and watching. So I see that there's a few people that are coming in and out that are kind of joining us. So when you join us and you're listening, I would love for you to drop your name in. Well, you don't have to drop your name because we are on Facebook, but if you want to tell us like what city you're from, and let us know, have you ever conducted a year in review for yourself, even if it's not something that's formal, but it's just a way that you kind of sit back and reflect and think about it. We're going to talk about why we think a year in review is important. I have posted a link in the comments so that you can click on that link and you can go ahead and grab a copy of a document that I created specifically for this purpose. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that. If you're listening to the podcast, you can actually grab a copy. You'll be able to grab a copy at strongher.me/episode 82. So, but for now, the first thing I want to ask you, Isha, how I was thinking we would approach this before we actually kind of answer some of those questions. I want us to do kind of like a look back over this past year. A lot has happened this year. And if you think about 2020, how would you describe it in maybe 3 words? If you had to come up with 3 words to describe 2020, what would they be? And everybody that's watching, if you had to describe 2020 in 3 words, what would they be?
Exhausting. Hopeful,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say I'm trying to find one word and not a phrase. But I would say growth. That's not perhaps the best word, but if I look at what this year has represented for me personally and professionally, I would throw growth in the mix there
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah. And I think we'll get into, as we talk through the questions about the year in review, why exactly you chose those words. But what do you feel is the value of a year in review for the people that are listening and watching?
I think one of the challenges is that, people will take the time, some people, not all people, to set goals at the top of the year, at the end of the
Mhm.
year, but you haven't taken that step back to create the level of awareness to understand yourself, to understand what's working, what didn't work. And if you don't have that level of awareness to carry into that process as you even set your goals, what you
Mhm.
often find is that you're on this merry-go-round every year. You set goals, you don't achieve them, or you keep struggling with the same stuff, or you're good at the same. I mean, but it's just you never seem to break a certain plateau. And
Yes.
a lot of that is just a lack of awareness. And so doing that year in review allows you to really take that step back and say, all right, what happened here? What worked? What didn't work? And to even dig into just beyond the data and even getting into some of the emotions around why certain things were that way.
Mhm.
Because when you figure out what did work, okay, let me keep doing that. If you
Mhm.
figured out what didn't work, let me try something different. But too often we just keep doing the same stuff over and over and over and wonder why we're not getting that different result.
Absolutely. Yes, repeating the same things over and over. I mean, that is something that I have had a conversation even with my kids about, is this idea, and because we all do it, thinking that somehow I'm going to do the exact same thing I've done in the exact same way I've done it, and miraculously a different result is going to come out of
I'm
it.
just gonna work a little harder. This year is gonna be different.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
year is gonna be different. Or just putting this, here's the declaration. This is my year. So if we just put this is my year on the top of it, even if we do the same stuff, it's just going to magically be different because we've declared this is my year. Okay, let me
Mhm.
see the work process. Let me see. Let me
Yeah,
see how you're making some adjustments here. What is going to make this your year? Just
yeah.
because you say it doesn't mean it's so all the time. I mean, yes, I believe in affirmations and declarations and speaking, but faith without works is dead. And so, God has given us a level of wisdom to be able to act in certain ways, and that level of self-awareness and reflection is a piece of that. The Bible tells us to count the cost. So even this self-reflection process doing the year review is a part of counting the cost before you're making your plans for the next year.
Absolutely. When I was thinking about this, I thought about this quote about the fact that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Yes.
It's like when we don't remember the lessons that we are taking from this, then we are going to repeat those same mistakes again, because it's just become a part of who you are. Like, the habits and the patterns that we have in our lives, they just naturally flow out of us. And so unless we do something to disrupt our thinking around that, and I feel like doing a year in review kind of disrupts your thinking around some patterns and habits that you have, you will keep repeating them over and over and over again. Another reason I like to do a year in review is because we spend a lot of time thinking about how far we have to go, and
Mhm.
not a lot of time thinking about how far we have already come, right? And so, like, even when I am like running a half marathon, I'm not thinking, oh, I have 12 more miles to go, I have 11 more miles to go. That's discouraging. I'm thinking, whew, 1 mile down. All right, 2 miles down. Like, I got this. 3 miles down. It's like, so when you think about how far you have come versus rehearsing how much further you have to go, it re-energizes you to be able to keep running that race and keep moving forward with what God has called you to do. So that's good about us just kind of like, okay, this is the value of it. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the major moments. And praise the Lord, it was a lot of major
Oh,
moments
yes,
in
yes, indeed.
2020.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Oh, I was like, Lavista and I, a mutual friend that Isha and I have, we basically sent each other memes throughout the year about 2020, about just the craziness of this year. And, just how it's just like, it just kept compounding from one crazy thing to the next. So when you think about some major moments from 2020, like I said, there was a lot of them. What stands out in your mind as maybe one or two of those?
Well, I think one of the first major moments for me was just, and I think for all of us was, when this pandemic hit us, we
Mhm.
had to figure out what we were doing.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I remember is, opposed to going to, oh my gosh, woe is me, everything is going to be terrible, dumpster fire, dumpster fire. My first reaction was, okay, there's opportunity in this somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to step back and think about, okay, well, what are people going to need right now? And
Mhm.
how can I serve people right now? And that was even one of the phrases as I was, praying about, okay, what do I need to be doing right now? And one of the phrases that I heard from God was serve your way through it.
That's good.
And
That's
so then
good.
it became, all right, now what do I need to do in order to do that?
Mhm.
And so, that was a moment that all of us shared, and it meant different things to all of us, depending
Mhm.
on where we were and what we were doing. But this was also a very trying year in terms of just a lot of loss.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, that's when I talk about the exhaustion, that
Mhm.
came with a lot of it. And so just learning to build that level of resilience, but also being able to take a step back. And if I need to stay up under the covers today, I'm going to stay up under the covers today because I need to heal. And so just striking that balance between, okay, there are opportunities, and how am I serving, and how am I continue to grow, and not turning my back on my assignment, but at the same time making sure that I'm listening to my body and taking care of myself and giving myself what I need day to day. And one
Mhm.
day I may be fully energetic, and the next day it may be something different, just based on what's happening in my family, based on what's happening in the world, and not ignoring that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know I learned in corporate America is just push, push, push through it. And that stuff will catch up with you. So
Yeah.
it's going to catch up with you in your body. It's going to catch up with you in your mind. So not doing that and giving myself the grace that I needed.
Yeah, so good. I was thinking I would take a different major moment, and I would say when there was basically like this catalyst of George Floyd dying, and that being broadcast around the world, for people to see. Actually, I feel like the uprising that occurred out of that, I feel like it activated something that was deep on the inside of me that was already at the surface, but it caused it to spill out. So Aisha knows very well my journey, and I'm gonna try to give my journey in very capsulated very quickly. That I was raised in a home where who I was, my identity as a person of color, as a Black woman, was celebrated. And I feel like when I became a Christian, of course, my Christian faith is very important and valuable to me, but there became a point where I felt like that part of who I am, I had to suppress that, and being vocal about who I am as a Black woman was not celebrated the way that being vocal about who I am as a Christian was celebrated. And so God has just done, a work in me over the years of learning some type of balance around being able to identify with both and letting both of them hold space in my life and not feeling like I have to downplay that part of myself. And so when everything happened with George Floyd, honestly, for me, before George Floyd was Ahmaud Arbery. That really ignited something on the inside of me because it baffled me that a human being could be minding their business, doing something that is so common, like running down the street, and that people could take it in their own hands, become juror, executioner, all in the same moment. And people question the person who was minding their business running down the street versus the humanity that we can look at another human being and gun them down in the street. Like that did something on the inside of me, that it was like, you know what? I have to say something. Like, I cannot allow this to silence me any longer. And so so then there was a series of things that I feel like happened at the same time that caused this thing to uprise for everybody. People that had never said anything, and they became vocal. And for me, that's where this whole reclaiming your voice, like, that really became my theme this year, is that recognizing that there is something that God has placed in every single one of us, that we cannot allow our past mistakes, we can't allow people's opinions of us, anything to silence those giftings. You're never going to fully realize that if you allow what other people think to hold you back from what God is calling you to do. And so that was a very pivotal moment for me, where I was like, I'm no longer okay with being silent about things that matter, as Martin Luther King would say. And so that is what I would call a major moment that really ignited something on the inside of me.
Yeah. And it was beautiful to see you to step into that place, because I've always known it was in you and bubbling up and rusting up in you. And to see you just let loose, that was, as your friend, that was a beautiful thing to see. And I mean, that's why I love what I do so much, because when people are truly walking in their purpose, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And you can look at people and you don't have to think to themselves, oh, I need to look like that. I need to speak that way. You're just you, and you being on your assignment in that timing. It was, oh my goodness. It's hard.
You were texting me and
oh my, man, I'm telling you.
yeah.
And you can think you're doing everything else so perfectly, but out of alignment. But when you get in alignment with your purpose and and sometimes it is so uncomfortable, because, like you said, you don't want, to be judged, or that there's disagreement on the side of what you do, but you cannot let that stop you. People didn't agree with Jesus, a whole lot of it.
Yes.
So what makes you think everybody is going to agree with you or see everything the way that you see it? But that can't hinder your assignment.
Yeah. And it's like, when did that become the goal? Like, when did other people's approval become the goal for you really walking out and stepping into what God has created you to do? And that even means people that I don't agree with, like, like, I have really admired and appreciated people that I vehemently disagree with what they're saying, but at least they have a conviction, something that they're willing to stand on, that says, you know what, regardless of whether or not I agree with you, I respect that you believe this, you feel called to this, and you are using your voice for, the message that God has given you to say what you need to say. And we need all of that. Like, all of us stepping into that is what is going to help us fully live this out in a way, like you said, that is beautiful. Watching people step into their calling is a very, very powerful thing. And a big part of that is people being willing to use their voice for what God has called them to do. So what would you say? So, we're going to kind of move more in the direction of this year in review. Like I feel like we are doing that now, but like some of the questions that are on that guide that I provided for people to look at. So let's talk about some of your wins from this year. So what were your 3 most memorable wins, Isha, from 2020?
So I would say the first thing was being able to pivot startup life support so quickly. We, for the past 4 years, had met face to face. I was very adamant about us meeting face to face. When people would say, "Well, can you do this?" I'm like, "Nope, we need to be looking at each other."
Yeah.
And then, of course, when the opportunity to do that went away in March, I had to make that. I wasn't just going to let go of it, and
Mhm.
so we didn't miss a beat. Like we literally didn't even miss a meeting, and we transitioned online, and that allowed us. One of the goals for Startup Life Support has always been to go national, but
Mhm.
still with that face-to-face strategy. And so one of the goals for 2020 that I wrote at the end of last year was to take Startup Life Support national. Didn't look the way that I wanted it to look or expected
Mhm.
it to look, but
Mhm.
we fulfilled that goal. And so just being able to quickly move on that instead of sitting back and over analyzing it, and we got to send surveys and we got to do it. We're going to do it and we'll work the kinks out as we go. And
Yeah.
so that's what we've been able to do. And now we've got members in 4 new states that we weren't reaching before. And so
So
that
good.
was definitely a big win. The second win I would say is being able, when I first moved to Arizona 10 years ago from Michigan, one of the things that I thought about, and it wasn't a goal written on paper anywhere, but I just remember thinking to myself, it would be so nice to be able to spend the summers in Michigan, where my family is and where it's cooler that time of year. And I thought about it, but I never worked out now what would it take to make that happen. And
Mhm.
so when everything was going on and I just knew, all right, I need a break, I bought a one-way ticket to Michigan and I went home and I stayed for 2 months. And so probably a month into that, I realized, hey, this was that thing that I said I wanted to do 10 years ago. Didn't
Mm.
know it would look like this. Thought I had to plan everything out and figure out this and figure out that. And I just bought a one-way ticket and I went and I came back when I was ready to come back. And so, one of the things that it taught me is that we tend to do a lot of overthinking and over planning. And there are things
Mhm.
that we want to do or goals that we may have that we could perhaps make happen a lot faster if we didn't overthink them so much or put ourselves in these imaginary boxes that really aren't there. And so that was huge. Like I felt like I was winning at life when I was able to say, you know what? No, I'm not ready to go home yet. I'm going to
Mhm.
stay another week. I'm going to stay another 2 weeks. And before I knew it, it was 2 months. And that was such a big win for me. And I was able to do all the things that I would have done in my business had I been sitting at home. And so it was wonderful. And the third thing I would say is, and a goal that I had coming into this year was around building a team. And
Mhm.
I'm a recovering control freak. And so even when I was in corporate, it was very difficult for me to ask for help. I was used to figuring it out. My mom told me that one of the first phrases that I was able to clearly utter at about 2 years old was, "I can do it myself." And so knowing that, okay, you can't do it yourself anymore. And I've known that for years, but I've taken steps to maybe, you know, partner with people or bring people on, and it doesn't work out or they go away or whatever happens. And when it doesn't work out, my default is typically to go back to, I can do it myself.
Mhm.
And so this year, a big win was maintaining that focus around, no, we have to build a team. If this person isn't the right person, then let's find the person who is. If the talent doesn't come to you fully developed, if they're worth investing in and developing that talent, let's do it. But that was a completely different mindset that I was able to stick to. I knew I needed to do those things before,
Mhm.
but I hadn't always been consistent in practice. And so I was able to be consistent in practice throughout 2020 around that.
Yeah, I know that has to feel good. The fact that you were able to consistently stick to it and just, keep pushing towards it because like you said, when you know that this is something that you could be doing, but you just got to give it a little more energy to see it happen. Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
And when you see, now this is taking me 3 times as long as if I had just done it myself. But keeping that thought in the back of my mind, but when this person gets it, I won't have to, it'll take me no time. They take me longer now, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's just, and when I started to see things happening in the business that I didn't touch, that I didn't have to make happen.
It's like,
the break dance, moonwalk, do it all. Like it was, truly stepping into that role of CEO versus.
Yeah, that's so good. Stepping into the role of CEO. And then it's like hearing you say that, seeing like the progression, because you start in one place, right? And then you have to own each season that you're in to really see the progress that you want to make. So I love hearing you say that, stepping into being a CEO. That's so good. So good. Loved hearing your answers. And I was like, the way I worded this, I shouldn't say what are your 3 most memorable wins. I should say what are 3 of, because it feels like there are so many wins that you have in a year. And that's another reason why I love doing this, because we can put a lot of focus and energy on all the things that happened that we didn't like or that were hard to deal with. And then we can forget about all the other great things that happened. So this is just a good way to remember that. So what I put is my 3 most memorable wins. So one of them was, I feel weird sharing this, but I'm gonna share it anyway.
Say it, come on.
Was tripling my income in my business. And there was a lot of growth that I had to do for that to happen. And it required me to become the person that could do that.
Yes. Look, if you're not watching this video right now, you listen to the podcast, like I'm about to just like explode out of my skin right now.
Yeah, I had to become the person that I thought I was. So, and that process happened through having, watching a mentor who is operating at a very high level, and she becoming a client, and her support, her encouragement of my gifts and the way God has wired me made me own who I am and what I bring to the table. And that is such a different mindset than I had 3 years ago. The constant second guessing and wondering, and me also being willing, when I'm working with people, I had to learn how to do a lot of my own work around my perspective and my own belief system. So when you work with someone in your life, if you work with a mentor, you work with a coach, you work with, someone training you, a lot of what their beliefs are can get into the work that they do, right? So if you have a mentor who believes that their income potential is unlimited, right? You're going to inherit that belief from them, and you can choose to hold on to it or you can choose to let it go. But also, if you have a mentor or a coach who believes there's a ceiling to what's possible, you're going to inherit that. And so for me, as someone who mentors and works with people, I had to be willing to work on my own belief system so that I'm not unintentionally causing people to inherit my limits in their life. And I feel like I worked really hard at that this year, really working through a lot of that. And I worked through that with also the support of like my friends. that are a part of my circle of friends. So that includes Mag 7, our accountability group. That also includes a group of women who are also life coaches like me, that I meet with them every single week. My best friend who is a business owner, like my husband. So lots of people helping me work through that. And so I consider that a win, that pushing through that. And so I can keep going to the next level of what God is calling me to do. So another win was letting go of control where my children are concerned. So I did not realize until I had adult children how much control and fear that I have parented from, like that place of just holding on so tight. And I think that I believe that parents have a responsibility to create a safe environment for our children. Like, I feel like if we do nothing else for our children, providing them with a safe environment is one of the most basic things that we should be providing for them. But at the same time, there can get to a point where you have to control every single experience, person, everything that they're involved with. And so when they become 18 and you're no longer in charge of, well, you never were, but you thought you were, of their life, then it can create a lot of fear in your heart. And it can also make you question a lot about what you did as a parent. And so this year, I have gained a lot of freedom around not having to do that and trusting the grace of God more, trusting that He fills in the gaps of all the things that I wish I had done or done differently or said differently or, experience as I wish they would have had, and all those kind of things that we get into regret about. So that has been huge for me this year, and I have slept a lot better because of it. And then the third win, I would say, is just having more opportunities to mentor more closely, like not from just talking to people through my email list or talking to them through Facebook, but actually connecting with people. Of course, it's distance through, video like this. But at least, just less of that distant type relationship with people, but more of the up close mentorship. That has helped me grow a lot this year, in my calling, in really like the relationship building of what you need to do in order to keep growing in your calling. So for me, those are what I would say are my three of my most memorable wins for 2020. All right. So the next one that I want you to answer, Isha, is what did you try that you didn't complete, but you plan to keep working towards in 2020? So, like, what was a goal that you had that you didn't complete, but you plan to keep working towards as we move into 2021, I should say?
So I have my ideal life revenue goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with this number. Sometimes we set these revenue goals and we just
Mm-hmm.
pull a number out of the sky because it sounds good.
Yeah.
But what I did was literally think about what are all of the things that I want to be able to do, the experiences that I want to be able to have, that I want to be able to give to other people. And through that, I came up with, well, what does that number look like? What does my revenue look like in a year's time or in a month's time to be able to do that? So I know what that number is. And so it was my goal in 2020 to hit that number. Now, I made a conscious decision that, you know what, I'm tired and I need to rest. And I'm going to kind of go into maintenance mode a little bit where I need to. And so in doing that, I voluntarily laid that goal down.
Mm-hmm.
And so the goal is still important to me. And so it's one that I will continue to work on in 2021. And if I didn't hit it in 2021, I would continue to work on it in 2022 because it's not random. There's purpose behind it. And there are things that achieving that goal means. Achieving that goal means I can take my entire family on a vacation.
Yes.
And I've got like 14 nieces and nephews, everybody. So that's a major goal. I want to start an entrepreneurship center in my hometown in Michigan. So hitting that number will allow me to be able to do that regardless of who else decides they want to fund it or grant or whatever. I'm not going to have to rely on anybody else's money to do it. So those things are still important to me. And so that goal is still important to me.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love hearing you talk about that because I have also a similar goal. So yeah, I did hit this great win that I have, but I'm still not where I want to be, right? But I'm glad you're talking about this too, because I feel like we don't talk about this part of it enough, right? The money making aspect of being an entrepreneur and, being able to provide for the goals that you have for your personal life through that. So, like, what do you feel that you have learned this year, even though you didn't reach that goal, that's going to help you get closer maybe next year?
Well, one of the things is just kind of going back to knowing that I cannot do this thing on my own. So it is going to require having a strong team around me. And even having that strong team around me, if I do find myself needing to pull back and rest a little bit, the business can continue to go on. Everything won't stop because I say I'm tired. There are things that can continue to move forward. So that's still critical. And then one of the things too is just keeping that goal in front of me. Like I have, there is essentially a blueprint that I have written down on paper that goes through. This is what I do. This is who I do it for. This is basically how I'm going to transform your life. And here's what it costs.
Yes.
And as a result of that, I'm going to bring in this amount of revenue and it's going to allow me to do these things. And so when I would get up in the morning before I started my work day and really during even my prayer and meditation time, that was a part of that time. And so I was so fixated on that goal and things were happening. Well, when I got tired, I put that down too. And so I know that even keeping it in front of me every single day, reciting that every single day is a key part of it. But more than anything, it is making sure that I have the right people and systems in place, because I'm not trying to kill myself to hit that number either.
Yes.
So that's what we're not going to do. So I've got to remain diligent about, making sure that the operations are strong to support that.
Yeah. One of the things that I hear you talking about when you were saying looking at it every day is the habits and the patterns that we have in our lives. Like, how do we create some type of habit that helps us get closer to where it is that we're trying to go? I love you and I both love Valerie Burton. She was a coach for both of us. And she recently sent out an email, which I really loved. And she talked about the fact that a lot of times about, goal setting, people really focus so much on the goal versus who you have to become to reach the goal that you have. Right. And so I feel like that's what we're both saying, that you're talking about is like, there is a person that you have to become to hit this goal, right? And so you're constantly trying to shift your habits, your thoughts, the people around you to get in position to become the person that can hit that specific goal that you're working towards. Yeah.
I tell you, and that's one of the things that we even talk about in Startup Life Support a lot too, because you may have this business goal, but what happens when you hit it?
Yeah.
And so looking at your personal life, looking at what does that mean for your relationship with your spouse or your significant other? What does that mean for your relationship with your kids? Like, if your goal in starting a business was to be able to have more time and energy for them, have you completely pulled yourself away from why you were doing it as you would work to achieve this goal? So yes, becoming the person is so important. And is it making sure that I'm doing the things that I'm staying committed to in my personal life, that I continue to take care of myself in terms of my health, that I don't let everything go to pot chasing this goal because, I hit it and I drop dead the next day.
Yes.
No. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And if you're building a multi-million-dollar empire, you've got to be a leader if you're going to have teams, so do you know how to lead people? So yes, all of those things around being the person that you need to be to achieve that goal is so important. That's why I don't get frustrated with myself over things that I didn't do in the past. Because I'll ask myself, well, if that had happened 5 years ago, would you have been ready for it? Or would you have been in a place perhaps your ego would have been jumping in here and you think you something now, because you've achieved this, versus being able to step back and say, yes, I know my stuff. I know the contribution that I'm bringing to the world, but I don't own this. Yeah. And so whether things are good, whether things are bad, I'm not going to be moved by what things are going, because I'm grounded now. And for me, that took some years, that took some maturity. If I had done that at 30, I would have been a mess.
And you know what?
That would like me.
And I love hearing you say that, because what it makes me think about is the empathy that you gain in this process, right? Because sometimes you can become very self-righteous when something comes easy for you, right? And it's kind of just like, well, why doesn't everybody do this? Like, what's the big deal?
Yes. That is so true. Give me somebody that's been through some stuff.
Yes.
That's what I want. Because when I'm struggling, you get it. Yeah. And I can even remember, some years ago going through the roughest spot in my business where I pretty much lost everything. And even in that moment, thinking to myself, okay, this is going to help somebody one day.
Yeah.
So if this is what I need to go through to develop the level of empathy to serve people the way I need to serve them, okay, we'll take it. I don't want it. Yeah. But I'll take it.
Yeah.
Because I know God will use it.
Yeah. And it's such a great feeling to work with a person who maybe they haven't been through the same struggle that you've been through, but they have been through something, and now they're on the other side of it, and they can say, come on, girl, you can do this. You can push through this. You're stronger than you think. Yeah. So, so my goal that I'm going to keep working towards you already know what I'm gonna say.
You see, I didn't even bring it up this year.
You know what? I'm determined to make this goal, and I don't even know. Okay, I'm gonna say weight loss, but maybe it's more than weight loss, because the reason I keep working towards this goal is because I truly believe that I can get there, and at this point, it's bigger than the goal. Like, it's like, I want to reach this goal because it's a commitment that I have made to myself. And I want to do it for that reason. And because it has been hard for me, and I can do hard things. And I want to prove to myself that I don't have to just resolve to stay in this place. I want to move forward. And, y'all don't have to give me no weight loss tips or anything like that. This is one of those things where you know what to do, but living it is a lot harder than actually doing it, right? I mean, than saying what there is to do, right? There's just basic things that And so what I'm putting myself like in this cold discovery process. Let's figure out what works. So like, okay, you do this for a while and you say, okay, I need to tweak this, like making those adjustments along the way is kind of like where I'm at. And Coach Isha, if you have any insight you think I need to think about as Girl,
I'm the wrong person to talk about this, because that's another one I totally tapped out on. I'm like,
but with goals though, like in general, like so Coach Isha, you working with a client and there's a goal that they keep resetting. Like, is there any type of insight that you would share with them about this, goal that helps you keep pushing towards it? Because it's a meaningful goal to me. So it's not just an arbitrary, I'm doing this because other people think I should do it, or because I think I need to fit a certain size. It really is something to me that's bigger than reaching a quote number on a scale, right? Yeah.
No, I think you nailed it. It's just really being in that trial and error process. Even if we just think about the process of entrepreneurship, it's like being a scientist in a lab.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you come in with a hypothesis. So you think, okay, if I do this, this is going to lead to that. And you
Mm-hmm.
try it, and either it works or it doesn't. And if
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work, you step back and you think about, okay, you look at the data and say, all right, what about that worked and what didn't? Let me try to figure out why it didn't and do something else. And so those goals that are sometimes difficult to reach, that we keep finding ourselves up against it, it's just figuring out what is that mix, what is that
Yeah.
formula that gets us there.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you're on the right track, but the most important part is it's not an arbitrary goal for you.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes when we have these goals that we're really not connected to, we're really
Yeah.
not committed
Yeah.
to, then just go ahead and let it go, But
Mhm.
when it really does have a sense of purpose, then yeah, we just got to keep figuring out what does it take to get there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like like I'm customizing it. Like that's why I like customizing it for yourself. And I think that makes it meaningful, and it isn't arbitrary. I like Sheila says, as a writer and speaker, my goal is to find my distinctive voice for this season in my life. Yes,
Mm,
that's powerful. That is powerful. Find your distinctive voice, because I feel like finding your voice, out of finding your voice, it creates like this ripple effect throughout the rest of your life. Yeah.
it really does. It really does. And I hate seeing people in this spiral of not finding that thing,
Mm-hmm.
because it'll be some of the people that work so hard. They're
Mm-hmm.
so disciplined, they're so committed, and it's just not coming to them because you haven't found that voice. You haven't found that perfect alignment with your purpose, whatever it is. And so that could be the problem. It isn't your Facebook ads, it isn't your marketing, it's
Mm-hmm.
just that you're just not in that alignment with that, as she said, that distinctive voice.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's why earlier when you talked about the personal brand and the authenticity that you bring to the table, ve- really leaning into who you are and not trying to look like or be like anyone else, and knowing that every bit of who you are is exactly who you need to be to fulfill the purpose that God has called you to.
Yes.
Like my southern country accent, the fact that I stumble over my words, the fact that me and my husband um, dealt with a huge financial crisis, the fact that, the journey that I have been on myself to reclaim my voice, like all of those things are things that attract other people to who you are, and not trying to look like or be like someone else. Like that is not going to get you into your calling and your purpose.
Nope, not at all. Look, I don't even code switch anymore.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
And at this point of life, I've got the receipts, so I can
Yeah.
show you I know my stuff and I can do it. And if you just don't like the package just comes in, oh well. Oh well.
Yeah, I was like, when you said that, like the person I have been thinking about a lot, my 12-year-old is over here celebrating. Come on, like just stick your head in. I did. He's celebrating the last day of finals, so I had to let him.
Right.
So this is it. You free. You're free. Okay, I'm recording now. Go out.
Be free. Be free.
Be free over there. So I had to do that. So, but you know
Yeah.
what, Tabitha Brown, like, so I don't know if you all have heard of Tabitha Brown. She has really been a source of inspiration for me this year. She has actually talked about how for years, like she's been on this journey of, doing all the things that she's doing now for the last 10 years. She has been on this journey, and trying to become an actress and receiving all the rejection that you receive in that process. And it wasn't until something in her life that she had no idea would be the catalyst for her really becoming more of her authentic self. And so now, like, all the things that she does, it's like it's not her pretending to be someone else, it's her actually being herself. That has been the thing that has made people fall in love with her. It's her just being who she is, not trying to be anybody else, but just being who she is. And I was like, how freeing is
Yes.
that?
Yes. Oh my goodness, it's freeing. Oh my god. Like I can't even it's like trying to walk around in like Spanx that are 2 sizes too small, you know? You
Yes,
might
yeah,
look good on the outside in it, but good night. It is so uncomfortable. You can't wait to get out of it.
yeah,
So no, we
yeah,
need to be free.
yeah. And I know, you know, so I know we could talk about this all day. I want to kind of end our conversation with the last question around. So, Aisha, what are one or maybe one or two lessons that you have learned in 2020 that are going to change how you approach 2021?
I would say continuing to build in opportunities to devote to the people and the things that I can care about. So as I looked at, you know, and completing the full review, and as I looked at the things that I was most grateful for, the answered prayers, all of it was around, for the most part, the people in my life that I care about.
Yeah.
And I have some workaholic tendencies, and the fact that my child is grown, and I'm not married, so I don't have people that I have to care for day to day. So it's very easy for me to just zero in and focus and just work. So to be able to, you know, this year was very like, okay, I'm just dropping everything. I'm gonna take care of me and be with my family and all that. But to make sure, even as things quote normalize, that I have those very intentional periods of connecting with my family and making sure that they don't just become something I get to when I get time. Like right now, I'm in Michigan right now, and I'm a little frustrated with myself because I said, okay, 15th, I'm on vacation from the 15th to the end of the year, and I got a lot of stuff on my calendar this week, and I'm like, this wasn't supposed to be this way. I was supposed to be with my family, you know, I haven't seen my family yet, but just being very intentional about that and knowing that there is more to my ultimate happiness and satisfaction than the success in the business. So that was a big lesson that I'll be carrying into 2021.
So good. So good. The things that really matter to you, yeah, just making those the priority and making the shift around everything in your life to line up with that is that I think that's so awesome. I would say the authentic living is the lesson that I have learned, that it really is okay that I am Southern and I am country and I love being a Black woman, that I um, have been married for my entire adult life, that I am a mother, and that I just all the things that make me who I am is exactly who I already need to be to fulfill the purpose that God has for my life. Like, I don't need to become something else or anything other than who I already am. I feel like that's the lesson that I have learned as I move out of this year, and also that lesson helps me appreciate that in other people. You know, even when it's people that drive me absolute. When I see some of y'all Facebook posts. But I'm like, okay, let them be who God created them to be. That's gonna
Yes.
touch. That's gonna touch somebody. It ain't touching me, but
There for somebody. I mean, but there for somebody. Yes.
oh,
But I mean, that's really a good thing though, too, because we tend to project our judgment and our values on
yes,
other people based on
yes,
what we
we
like and who we are. And when we stop doing that,
do.
that's another area where you can set yourself free. So
Yep.
then you're not frustrated by so many other people. And that's not on social media. That may be in your house, in your family, in your whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop projecting your stuff on them. Let them be who they are, and you focus on being who you are.
Amen. Amen. All right. So Aisha, um, I know people are going to love and adore you as much as I do. So especially for the people that, they heard us talk about the personal branding and they're like, man, you are speaking my language. How do they connect with you? What's the next step that they could take with you?
So go to mybrandonpurpose.com. And there is a goodie there that I have for you, around 13 tips to build your personal brand on purpose. And what that will do also is to just let me know, hey, I'm interested in talking about this thing. And so then we can continue some conversations through email and other places where, we can give you continued information about what you need. Something else that I should share with you all, if you are that person, that expert, that coach, that consultant that is really looking to share your message on those bigger platforms, we need to talk, because we are opening a new cohort of the Platform for Purpose Incubator. And we only do that. We're only doing it once a year. So this is like one of those things you want to move on, and we need to talk so we can let you know what it's all about. So go to mybrandonpurpose.com, and you'll start to learn more about the incubator there in our timelines. And if you are an entrepreneur, and like we talked about, having that support in those people around you, and you find yourself saying, well, I don't have that, and I am lonely, and I'm struggling, and this is hard, and you need that community, then I encourage you to go to startuplifesupport.com. And there you can apply to come and visit us for free and check it out and see if it's for you.
Yay. Thank you for sharing those two resources. And I'm sure people will be heading over to those. And I just love having you as my guest.
Oh, being here. I wish we could do this more often.
we just have such a good time together. So for everyone watching and listening, this is our last podcast episode of 2020, our 82nd episode. So if you are new to the podcast, there are plenty of great episodes that you have missed. So I encourage you during this holiday break, when you have some downtime, maybe you are wrapping gifts, or you're going for a walk in your neighborhood, or you're doing the dishes, that you go and check out those episodes. We actually recently just did a very powerful episode, 81, about grief and loss. And so I think that would be very valuable. We've gotten some great feedback from that. And even if you're not new, like I said, you more than likely have missed a few. You can follow me on Instagram at Kendra Tillman. I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments, any show ideas maybe that you've had. One of the things that we're going to do for this episode, so when you listen to this from your podcast player, I asked the women in my community to share some of their lessons learned. So you will hear some of those lessons learned in the podcast episode. And I think that they are going to be a blessing to you. It has been quite a year. I tell everyone, if 2020 was a shirt, it would be the shirt that Theo wore on the Cosby Show, the Gordon Gartrell shirt that he wore. It has been a year of, so many unexpected things. And so I just want to thank you for listening to the podcast. And I pray that it has helped you in some way mentally break free in 2020. That we ask that you would share it with someone you know, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And until next time, work your plan and watch God work. All right, y'all. Bye.